This is Nightly Business Report with Bill Griffith and Sue Herrera.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this special edition of Nightly Business Report. Sue is off tonight. It is no secret that the economy is growing and it is considered by many to be healthy. And tonight we're going to take a look at different industries that are doing well, yet face challenges. We begin with the red-hot labor market. Unemployment is historically low, and while that's good for employees, it's creating a worker shortage for companies that are looking to hire. Steve Leisman has more.
Wanted 1 million workers. That's the number of extra workers the U.S. economy will likely need if it's even going to have a chance to grow at 3%. That's a percentage point above what economists think right now as U.S. economic potential. Here's the math. Right now, U.S. economic potential growth is thought to be 1.9%. Half a point of that comes from workforce growth, and 1.4% comes from productivity. That is, American workers getting more efficient every year. But President Trump and others want to see growth return to the post-war average of 3% plus. To do that, the U.S. will need more workers and more productivity.
Historically, any society or economy that has an aging population, has a shrinking labor force, it doesn't have to be the end of the world in terms of output and growth and your position in the world, but you have to run faster just to maintain the level of output that we currently have, which is around $20 trillion. To maintain that or even move it to $25 trillion, like you said, we're going to need a combination of more workers, automation, and reaching across our borders for more workers as well.
Exactly how many more workers? Say half of the extra 1 percentage point of growth comes from growing the workforce. Right now, the U.S. is expected to add 1 million workers a year. Economists say another 1 million workers above and beyond what's forecast will be needed every year to add a half a point to potential growth. And that's even if the U.S. gets people who aren't working to start participating in the labor force. Conrad de Quadros of RDQ Economics says it's really difficult to get this additional labor via higher participation rates because of the aging of the population. The U.S. could put more of the unemployed back to work, but the low 3.7% unemployment rate suggests the pool of workers is small and getting smaller. And the question is how much further the Federal Reserve will let unemployment fall before it feels it has to slam the brakes on the economy.
I think they're on the edge. Their forecast would tell you they don't want it to go below 3.5. I think they keep going gradually. I don't think it means that they have to go faster. It may ultimately mean they go further.
Bottom line, it's going to be very hard for the U.S. to reach a goal of 3% growth. Not because there isn't work to be done, it's because there may not be enough workers. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Steve Leisman.
The shale oil industry is facing an unprecedented labor shortage. And with oil prices volatile, that may be just one of the problems facing the energy-rich Permian Basin. Brian Sullivan is in Midland, Texas for us tonight.
Here in West Texas, long-timers in the oil and gas business will tell you the industry is really built on three things: rock, people, and money. The Permian Basin of Texas, the richest oil area in America, has plenty of the first, but always needs more of the other two. And that's why some people are beginning to question if the great American shale oil boom has reached a peak. So-called good rock is plentiful here. It's estimated there are tens of billions of barrels of oil just waiting to be sucked out of the ground. But to do that, you need the oil and gas workers to do the job, something that is increasingly harder to come by in a city 500 miles west of Houston with one of the hottest real estate markets in the country.
Getting people to come here, particularly if you need them to move here, is a difficult challenge. Obviously, real estate, particularly troublesome in that housing is very, very expensive, more expensive here than Houston or Dallas or someplace like that. And so for younger families trying to come here and start up, that's a lot to ask.
Locals have told us that some houses will sell in less than 24 hours. Some workers live in hotels, where rates can be eye-popping. A hotel like this can run nearly $400 per night. But the biggest concern about the shale boom on Wall Street is not people. It is debt. Moody's estimates that some $240 billion of oil and gas company debt will mature in the next 5 years, with nearly $100 billion of that alone coming from the exploration and production companies. We asked the head of research at Simmons Piper Jaffray about the impact rising rates could have on the industry.
Of course they matter. Actually, a collective balance sheet of the upstream sector with regard to E&P and oil service is in much better shape than it's been in a long time. Companies are living with a much closer, proximity of cash flow, and there's been true capital allocation reform. So effectively, I think that was a germane argument 2 or 3 years ago when E&P companies were living well outside of cash flow. But today, coupled with pretty responsible balance sheets and living within much closer proximity of cash flow, I don't think is nearly as alarming as it could have been.
A few years ago, many oil and gas companies had almost no free cash flow. Now they've gotten smarter and they've cleaned up their balance sheets. Low interest rates and higher oil prices have been a great combination for the industry. But if rates keep moving higher and oil prices fall due to a slowing economy, the booming shale oil industry and the boom town of Midland, Texas, could find itself between a good rock and a hard place. For Nightly Business Report, Brian Sullivan, Midland, Texas.
Obviously, when the economy grows, many businesses benefit. And that's one of the reasons why the cruise industry is firing on all cylinders right now. In fact, Royal Caribbean is making a big bet that the consumer will continue spending with its recently opened new port in Miami. Seema Modi went to check it out for us.
As more baby boomers retire, the cruise industry is expecting a strong upturn in 2019 with a record 17 ships set to debut next year. Problem is, there's not enough capacity at the ports to accommodate the new ships. Royal Caribbean is taking matters into its own hands, launching a state-of-the-art terminal, making it the first cruise line to build and launch a terminal in Port Miami.
This was a $250 million expenditure. But it'll pay back fairly nicely in terms of guest satisfaction, in terms of what it does for the community, and also our operating costs on a per passenger basis ends up being less. So the net to us is a slight improvement to our bottom line.
Royal broke ground on Terminal A last year. The build employed 2,000 construction workers. Port Miami estimates it will have a $500 million annual economic impact on the state of Florida.
We continue to have increases every single year, and so we had a record year of over 5 million cruise passengers come to Port Miami. We're the cruise capital of the world. We expect that to grow another 2 million by adding additional facilities, by adding more ships. We've already contracted more ships, more lines are now going to make Port Miami their home port. And so we expect that growth to continue and actually start to expand a little bit to year 2021.
With the new terminal, Royal Caribbean is forecasting cruise bookings to rise from 750,000 to 1.8 million over the next year. But the terminal launch comes at an uncertain time as investors debate the future of the economy, the impact of higher rates, and the state of the consumer. Royal Caribbean's Fain says while he's concerned about geopolitics and ongoing trade disputes, it's not having an impact so far.
I'm a free trade advocate, and anything that creates tensions about free trade I view as economically a bad thing. But our business in China continues to do well. I think part of it is because the Chinese market is so embryonic, it's so small that it doesn't take much to attract new customers.
Analysts say travel is an economically sensitive sector, and any downturn in the economy can have profound consequences on whether consumers continue to spend money on travel and cruises. For Nightly Business Report, Seema Modi, Miami.
It's not just cruise ships riding the wave of a strong economy. The corporate jet business is as well. It's finally taking off after a decade of trying to clear out the problems left by the Great Recession of 10 years ago. Industry leaders recently met in Orlando to set a course for the future, and Phil LeBeau was there.
They are big, high-priced, and very much in demand. Corporate jets, from small ones selling for a few $1 million to the big boys going for tens of millions. They are once again hot sellers.
Clearly, the global economy is very strong right now, particularly the U.S., and business aviation tends to follow the economy. So this is a particularly good time that we're seeing for the aviation industry.
After business jet sales lost altitude a decade ago, the recovery has been slow. mainly because a glut of used planes held down demand for new ones. That's no longer the case. Embraer's new Praetor 600 jet is attracting heavy interest.
We already have sales for the Praetor 600, the Praetor 500, so we're starting to see the momentum for our customers, not only our existing customers, but new customers coming to the brand, especially corporate flight departments.
The corporate tax cut and deregulation under the Trump administration have also convinced more companies it's time to get a new jet. The latest models can fly further with more connectivity and features, attracting a wider array of buyers.
It's been individual buyers, it's been private companies, small companies, large companies. I think everybody's benefiting from that, and I think you'll see that over the next couple of years.
Historically, this is a boom and bust industry, with jet makers overbuilding in the good years. But this time, industry leaders believe it will be different, confident they can keep the business jet business soaring for years to come. Phil LeBeau, Nightly Business Report, Orlando, Florida.
Now, as the economy grows, so does the amount of stuff that we ship from place to place. That's especially true now that more people shop online. And that gave one entrepreneur the bright idea to help businesses get packages where they need to be at a lower cost. Sue has the story.
Raphael Zakhanov began selling high-end surplus watches and jewelry as he worked his way through college in 2009. He discounted prices and sold online through Amazon, eBay, and others out of an apartment in Queens.
The living room was a warehouse, and the bedroom was a warehouse.
As he filled up the apartment with 10,000 items, Zakhanov began to notice price differences between the Amazons and eBays, telling friends and family running similar businesses that they often paid too much.
I saw that they're really missing an opportunity of selling elsewhere where the margins were better. None of them wanted to handle the logistics, or the space was too expensive.
A burgeoning e-commerce boom meant thousands of small businesses needed help with storage, packaging, labeling, and shipping.
I started calling up friends and I was like, hey, instead of you sending everything to Amazon, send me it. I'll send half to Amazon, we'll keep half of it by us, and we'll pick, pack, and ship it as the orders come in.
Starting in 2011, his company, Ruby Has Fulfillment, outgrew the apartment, and then an office space and a warehouse. By 2014, it was handling a couple thousand orders a day, and Ruby took its conveyor systems and shelving to a warehouse on Long Island. On average, the company says customers save 45% on freight, and if you think Ruby's warehouse looks like an Amazon fulfillment center, well, that's no accident.
We had to do everything right, and we had to do it the way Amazon would do it, just on a much smaller scale. We have clients today that have distribution centers 10 times our size, where that distribution center cannot handle the direct-to-consumer needs.
In fact, Ruby handles some orders from Amazon, but one thing Ruby offers that Amazon doesn't is the ability to use a customer's branded packaging.
There's a lot of companies that can say that they can do the branding, but not in scale, right? As soon as you start doing 1,000 orders a day, what we see is they break down on scale.
I don't want it to be like a third-party brand.
Chris Wichert started his high-end sneaker brand Koyo in a Brooklyn, New York apartment 3 years ago. Now Koyo has stores in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, but 60% of its business happens online. When Wichert signed on with Ruby this year, they realized some of his inventory lacked the barcodes needed for automated processing.
They discovered the problem, and without just sending them back or ignoring the problem, they would print barcodes themselves and label them and get them into the system so that nothing is lost.
Now with almost 200 clients and revenue of more than $17 million a year, Ruby has added warehouses in Las Vegas and New Jersey, with plans to expand further in 2019, aiming to keep delivery times down to the 2 to 3 days consumers expect and businesses depend on.
You could literally deploy those dollars into product, marketing, staffing, right? Things that actually help them grow the business. Getting a new forklift isn't going to add their top line or to the bottom line.
Ruby now has more than 200 employees and is looking to expand not only here at home, but internationally as well, possibly into Canada and Europe in the near future. Well, on this Thanksgiving evening, I'm sure you're like most Americans. Your stomach is stuffed, and so is your garbage and recycling. But did you know that the recycling business has seen better days? In fact, waste management company Republic Services says it is so weak, the whole recycling model needs to be scrapped. Jane Wells is in Anaheim, California for us.
The recycling business is getting trashed.
Well, the recycling model right now in the U.S. is broken.
Don Slager is CEO of Republic Services, a waste management company that's doing very well with its regular garbage business, not so well with recycling. And they're not alone. For years, the garbage man has collected our recyclables curbside, often at a loss, because he made good money reselling a lot of the material overseas, especially to China. But now China has an air pollution problem, so it has stopped buying things like our old cardboard boxes. And the value of those commodities have plummeted from about $200 a ton to half that.
At the same time, the values of these commodities are coming down. More and more consumers are putting the wrong stuff in the recycle bin. These people are busy pulling out the bad stuff, the stuff that shouldn't be in there. For example, plastic bottles are fine. Plastic bags, no, they gum up the machines. And get this, while clean cardboard is great, if you put in the greasy part of your pizza box, you could contaminate the entire load.
Contamination levels are as much as 30%. So we're sending a separate truck to your home to collect what should be clean recyclables, and we're having to then spend a lot of additional time, effort, and money, frankly, cost, in cleaning that material up.
Republic Services has invested in technology to improve sorting, but it warns that if the resale value stays low, collection rates at the curb will rise, though they might rise more slowly if people learn what goes in the blue bin and what doesn't. Think loose paper, clean cans and bottles, because the company says here's the ugly truth. For all of our good intentions, nearly a third of what comes in here these days ends up in the landfill anyhow. For Nightly Business Report, Jane Wells, Anaheim, California.
Then there's the scrap metal business, which is a $100 billion a year industry. 60% of U.S. steel is made from recycled scrap, in fact. And that's why one entrepreneur on New York's Long Island got the bright idea to make scrapping a full-time business. Sue has our story.
Scrapping metal is not easy, especially if you'd rather be doing this. But it's how Von Strauss pays the bills. Jobs he had in the past, landscape designer, swimming pool builder, even news photographer, read like a list of cans kicked down the road. Until in 2006, Strauss began picking them up, literally. He helped a friend scrap for just a week before starting his own business, and Metal Man was born.
I saw the potential of the money that could be made if you did it right.
Doing it right meant, among other things, financing a truck instead of renting to improve his cash flow. This is truck number 2. The first one, well, it was scrapped.
It's probably a toaster now, or a microwave.
He also learned hours of separating copper, iron, steel, and aluminum can mean making more money.
You don't cut it off, it's 85 cents a pound. You cut it off, it's $1.
Metal Man says he's picked up about 4 million pounds of scrap, mostly in the fashionable Hamptons on New York's Long Island. He summered there as a child and played music gigs there as a young adult.
You know, you do a rip out in the house. There's copper all over the house. So I'll approach these jobs and talk to the guy knocking it down. And the guy says, give me $300-400. And usually I double or triple my money.
Prices can fluctuate, sometimes violently. China's tariffs on U.S. steel meant growing supply at home this summer, and copper prices dropped nearly 20%.
$1.40 on the copper. Ouch.
But when he's busy, Strauss will drop 5 or 6 loads a day at recycling centers like Gershow, a family business opened by another scrapper back in 1964. Still, he was pleasantly surprised at how much this load paid.
$549. It was 1,173 pounds.
The biggest risk? Injuries. A fall sidelined him for weeks earlier this year, and he's still having issues with his fingers. A classically trained pianist, Strauss says he's played in 23 bands and written more than 1,000 songs. Now he's finishing a collection of 46 originals. His words, his music. There's value whether his music sells or not.
I'm a perfectionist with the music, and it transfers over to the business. I want to do everything right with the metal thing. I want everybody to be happy when they call me and then they have the Metal Man experience. I'm not kidding. The Metal Man's on his way here.
There's legend, too. A 1,000-pound safe? Call Metal Man.
There was about 30 workmen watching this whole thing. They were all cheering, Metal Man, Metal Man.
All part of marketing a superhero persona.
Iron Man's taken, and Man of Steel or Magneto. I'm trying to recycle metal instead of, rip it from the earth and keep mining it and all that stuff. So in a way, I'm trying to do something great for the planet.
Von Strauss says no, he would not call his music heavy metal. But in addition to his musical interests, all of that heavy lifting did pay for his trucks and also helped put his daughter through college. Great story. Now, in order to continue growing, industries do need to look to the future. And for the banking business, that includes robots. Leslie Picker recently attended the Money 2020 conference in Las Vegas.
Hey there, come talk to me.
Meet Pepper. She's a robot created by SoftBank, a concierge of sorts for the banking industry to help customers figure out tasks like depositing checks or opening accounts. The London-based bank, HSBC, thinks Pepper is a key to better customer service and next-generation technology for their branches.
It's been incredible, the feedback, and we're continuing to learn. This is history. No one's done this before in a U.S. bank branch. We're learning.
HSBC brought Pepper to the Money 2020 event in Las Vegas that gathers together hundreds in the financial technology industry to discuss the future of money. I decided to take Pepper for a test ride to see what she could do.
Pepper, tell me about credit cards.
Whether you're looking for cash back promotions, low introductory APRs, or travel benefits, HSBC offers a variety of credit cards to meet your needs. Say or tap one of the options on the screen to learn more.
Cash rewards.
Would you like to learn more about applying for the Cash Rewards MasterCard?
Text link. Oh, I just got it.
When you hear the word robot, you may think job replacement, but HSBC insists that Pepper isn't replacing any jobs. She's augmenting those that already exist by handling the more mundane tasks. HSBC says Pepper ensures customer privacy.
There is zero customer data, zero personal identifiable information. Pepper's not asking for it, she's not storing it, she's not recording it.
Each Pepper costs about $25,000, an investment that HSBC says they recouped just 3 hours after installing her at their flagship location in New York this summer. The firm says she's brought in more foot traffic, and those customers have signed up for credit cards, checking accounts, and other revenue-generating products for the company. But Pepper's not all business. She loves to show off her moves. Tell jokes.
What do you call an alligator detective?
I don't know, Pepper. What do you?
Investigator.
An investigator.
And even take a selfie. Regardless of her gimmicky side, HSBC is banking on Pepper, even if she just helps someone crack a smile. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Leslie Picker.
The future of the genetics industry relies on people learning more about their past, and that's being helped by the rise of direct-to-consumer DNA testing kits. 23andMe, one of the leading companies in that business, recently held an event in New York City, and Meg Terrell was there.
New Yorker Deborah Dedlani wants to learn more about where she came from.
My background is pretty blended, and I'm just kind of curious as to what my full background, my ancestry is.
So an Instagram post about an event for 23andMe caught her attention. The company is just one of many now offering direct-to-consumer genetic tests in a market that's exploded in recent years.
23andMe opened a pop-up in New York City to explain the information they give about everything, from how you sleep, to how your body processes caffeine, to gluten, to lactose, to even how your muscles work.
It's an example of the category's massive increase in advertising, up 63% in the first half of this year, driven by the largest companies, 23andMe and Ancestry. The market for consumer genetic tests could top $6 billion, according to Evercore ISI. But some experts are concerned about that growth and promises, implied or explicit, about what some tests can accomplish.
The benefit for cancer carrier testing, these are solid. Unfortunately, we got all these other, 90% of the field is essentially very questionable.
One independent company promises to improve kids' soccer skills. Others offer guidance for weight loss and fitness.
It's difficult for the average consumer who's uninitiated to ferret out which ones are of value and which ones are really worthless.
Helix, whose platform includes wellness tests from partners focused on diet and nutrition, says it vets their offerings thoroughly and doesn't make unrealistic claims. And despite these concerns, there's still a lot of optimism for the future of genetic testing.
All these sorts of things that we've been hoping for many years, it's eventually going to get actualized. It's just been a delay in getting there.
For Deborah Dedlani, it's about curiosity.
Now that I've seen that there's the medical side, I'm very curious about that too, so I probably will look into getting a kit.
She'll be one of millions who does. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Meg Terrell.
Thank you for watching this special edition of Nightly Business Report. I'm Bill Griffith. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, and we'll see you tomorrow.